You're listening to the Three Angry Giant Fans and a Jet Fan podcast with your hosts Scott, Giant Mike, Cardone, and Jets fan Novak. Listen to us free on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Can't reach back and look at a playoff loss, but this seems like the most painful because we all had such great expectation and we had hope for this team, and thought that we were aligned in great shape, and it didn't happen for us, and it's as fresh on me right now as it is on anybody else. But I won't get into any of the addressing of any aspects of it, any part of it, from the coaching to the players to what's around the corner.
So that was a very downtrodden and dejected Jerry Jones, very disappointed in the loss. And who wouldn't be after that display coming off of a 12-win season? And that's the way many of the Cowboy seasons have ended lately. So we're going to get into it all. This is the Three Angry Giant Fans. It's your host, Scott, Giant Mike, Cardone, and Angry Jets fan, Novak. Great week if you're a Giants fan. And, you know, if your team's not in it, you just take solace in the fact that you watched the Cowboys and the Eagles not just lose, but lose embarrassingly enough that there was actually talk that both could change coaches. Now, one thing we did have, this is breaking news. It won't be breaking news by the time you hear it tomorrow, but it's breaking news right now. Mike McCarthy's going to stay as the coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Good.
So thoughts on the weekend on those games before we break down everything in more depth.
I mean, what a crappy slate of games. I mean,
super blowout weekend.
Yeah.
Super wild card.
Woo! Yeah, gotta have it. Gotta have super wild card. Gotta have the extra team in there. You know, the playoffs don't even feel exclusive anymore.
No, I say every year because the Giants. I mean, we had we got a bone last year making the playoffs, but every year it comes down to the teams I despise not going on a run. That's all I have left. So obviously this year, I had mentioned it a couple times. I was definitely worried about Philly, several weeks ago, but I was really concerned about Dallas making a run in these playoffs after they, beat Detroit out to get that 2 seed. But you're right, Scott. As a Giant fan, seeing the Cowboys implode and then seeing the Eagles just quit and just, again, be as uninterested in winning a playoff game. We mentioned it last week against the Giants, the season finale, being as uninterested as they were. To do that, I thought they were going to flip a switch, the Eagles I'm talking about, and at least, I predicted them to win. I think we all did here last week, but I figured they would hit that switch and they'll correct it at least for one game. No way. I know we'll get into it, but as a Giant fan, watching those two teams go up in flames this weekend, couldn't ask for a better way to start the playoffs, guys.
I mean, the one thing we have in common as Jets, well, me as the only Jets fan and Giants fans, is the hatred of Philadelphia. And they went out in a blaze of glory. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, how have you ever seen a more uninspired, unprepared, less interested group than the Philadelphia Eagles in that game on Monday night?
No. I mentioned in a text, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like the death spiral of the Eagles this year. I mean, the other teams obviously have collapsed at the end of the year, but they look desperate. They look like they're trying. The Eagles just seemingly quit.
Yeah.
Like a few weeks ago. And there's no life in them at all. The team that played the Giants was exactly the team that showed up in the playoffs. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I go back to Sirianni going through the tunnel in Kansas City, yelling, "Can't hear you now," and all this other shit. And then, you have big play Slay whooping it up all year long, and everyone talking about how the Eagles are, basically a shoo-in to go back to the Super Bowl. And then the back half of the year, I mean, now you fast forward 1 year from a Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts is on the hot seat. Sirianni is on the hot seat. Kelsey's retiring. These guys, I mean, it's almost like they went from 1 year and a half, because again, they were 10-1 to just now. It's just a shit show. I mean, I'm sitting back here going, this is great. This is dysfunction. And everyone talks about how, put together the Eagles are. No, the Eagles right now are about as bad as you can get.
Yeah. They got outclassed in every way by a team I don't think any of us thought belonged in these playoffs.
Nope.
I really didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah. And give the Bucs credit too, though. I mean, that
absolutely
their defensive game plan, getting after Hurts, blitzing. I don't know how many times. I don't know. I didn't see the numbers, guys, as far as the percentage of plays. Scott, maybe you have it, or you guys. But I just hats off to that game plan. You saw early on what Tampa wanted to do defensively, and then my hats off. And we'll get to the other games, of course, but hats off to the Green Bay Packers as well. That game plan, LaFleur, having those guys, they right from the get-go, right? They set the tone, guys, winning the coin toss. We'll take the ball and going right down the field and going up 7-0 to set the tone in that game. So, and I know we'll get to the other games as well, but because some impressive football from the Texans, the Chiefs did what the Chiefs do in the playoffs. Lions Rams was the only real competitive close game. And then Buffalo, that was got a little bit close, but they pulled away too. So we'll break all those things down. But again, man, the Cowboys and Eagles was the headline for me, of course, this weekend and seeing those two teams just blow up. Can't talk enough about it. It's as good. I came flying off the couch on that pick six when it was 20, like a Giant game, right? I'm sure we all that's rare. You know what I mean? Usually it's like, you're kind of watching the game, but that was one where I was absolutely flying off the couch. There's nothing better.
So before we get into everything in depth, let's give a shout out. And this one will hit home to some of the Eagle guys. So hello, Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. It's a suburb of Philly. It likely had hooligans probably burning things down on Monday night. But outside of that, it sounds like a nice town. It's population 5,943. And it's referred to as the mushroom capital of the world. So apparently they produce half of all the nation's mushroom crop. And every September, accordingly, they have the Mushroom Festival. It's also the home of was the home of Jessica Savage. If you remember, she was the NBC News reporter who tragically drowned and had some other controversies around her throughout her time at NBC.
I do not know who that is.
I know Kennett Square very well. It's one of my best friends from college, who I'm assuming this is the download is from. But great town, great place. My buddy Stan. So Stan, if that is you and you're listening, what's up?
Hope your house is okay after the riots.
Well, yeah, there's that.
There's a mushroom festival.
Yeah, mushroom festival.
Mushroom festival.
I guess there could be a festival for anything, I suppose, if you just put it out. Like, how many people do you need for a festival? I mean, it's like 5,
Good question.
15. When does it become a festival versus just like, a small party?
I'm going to say 15.
15? Yeah.
You got 16. Right. You're looking at a festival.
Hey, I'm saying in the off season we get a 3 Angry Giants fans festival going in North Carolina here.
There you go.
Can we get that to happen?
All we need is 11 other guys.
Exactly. That's it. We might have had it on Saturday when we were out. So just saying.
Yeah, it's true.
So speaking of which, I do want to thank all of our fans from other teams. As we get into this part of the podcast for the next few weeks, we're not talking about the Jets and Giants that much. We're going to get into some Giant stuff here in a minute. But other than that, we're basically talking about other teams. But I had someone come up to me this week and say, I hate both your teams, but I love your podcast. And I really think that's the way some guys have summed up the way our listenership is. I mean, we know we have Jet fans listening. We have some Cowboy fans listening. We have fans of the Steelers, other teams listening. So it's good to get that kind of a feedback. So we appreciate everyone who's just a football fan looking to hear us, have some lively banner. And like Cardone says, bring the fervor.
Bring the fervor.
Fervor is always welcome.
But if you're tuning in right now, like if you're sitting down and hitting play or getting ready to go, you're a Cowboy or an Eagle fan, we are about to rip your team's ass out. So buckle up, my friends.
You're going to like Peacock's question at the
Oh, I
end
can't
because you
wait.
could tell he's very subdued this week. He sent one in, and that's it. And it's a speculative one at best. But before we get into the Eagle Cowboy bashing and the rest of the recaps of the playoff games, there was a big to do in the Giants camp because of the Wink departure and basically Pat Leonard, who I'm going to go on record as saying this guy is one of the biggest hacks in the sports journalism. And I put journalism in quotes industry because he's a guy who was kicked off the Rangers beat for basically writing lies. Had an article basically pinning this on Daboll and saying that he had a lot of anger on the sidelines and it was directed towards Wink and so forth. And I'll tell you what, Daboll is a fiery guy. I don't even know if any of us would dispute that. When you're winning, that fire is great. And when you're losing and someone gets disgruntled over it, all of a sudden now you're going to turn it into something else. I I look back and, we heard the news about McCarthy being retained. But at one point, after the games ended this weekend, Daboll could have been the longest tenured coach in the NFC East. if the things fell right. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Sirianni. And my question is this. I mean, I saw what happened with McCarthy. He's being retained. But should these coaches be fired? I mean, Mike McCarthy, I don't like the guy. But the guy's got 12 wins. The guy had 12 wins a year before. Sirianni took the team to the Super Bowl, and then the next year, there's a collapse going on. But do you fire him, or do you think he can right the ship? And think about who you bring in. Do you bring in a Vrabel? Do you bring in a Belichick? Are those guys at this point, Pete Carroll, any better than what you possibly could have? And are you going to disrupt things more because those guys are going to want certain control that you didn't give your previous coach? That's always a sticky thing with me. And it's the same reason all the firestorm around Daboll. I don't want Daboll gone. Daboll took us to the playoffs last year. He had us. If all this is true, as there was dysfunction all over the place, we still finished the year strong. We didn't fold. Put it that way. We didn't fold up 10 and give up. And usually you'll see that happen when a coach is on its way out. The team just gives up. Like the last 5 games or whatever, they just don't play. I sort of like what you saw with the Panthers this year.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Scott. It's always the needle always gets pointed at the head coach because that's they're the guy in charge, right, of the staff and all those things. But I forget who it was who said it the other day. So it doesn't matter. But one of the analysts said on the network there that you got to put a lot of this on. Players have to be accountable too. The players have to execute. They got to play. They have to. Forget exactly the way he said it, but it can't just be the head coach. It's easy to point the finger all the time at the head coach, but it's one of those things. If you don't have a specific guy in mind, if you're one of the the owner and you have a particular specific person in mind, then it's hard to get, just like it's hard to replace certain players. It's hard to find good head coaches too. It just is. So I'm with. It's a tricky situation. Most of these teams that are looking for head coaches at this point in the season, but I got to put it on the players too, guys. I don't know how you guys feel in terms of the players just executing and showing up. You take it again. We'll stay on the Eagles just for a minute. That seemed like a combination of a lot of things going on at the end of the season, but because I saw a lot of just ridiculous body language from the Eagles players. You look at Jalen Hurts. This guy couldn't be more disinterested, it looks like. And now he's probably banged up physically and all that, but at some point, when is it the players' accountability that come into play also, in addition to the coach? So you got to pass the blame around a little bit, and can't just be the head coach all the time.
It's also personality-wise. Think about what A.J. Brown did to that team at the back half of the year. He started grumbling as soon as they started losing. Then he doesn't even show up for the week when they're about ready to have a playoff game, and they lose.
No doubt.
I mean, I hate to bring up a term that Cardone has used before, but it is the pussification of the NFL. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so Daboll's a little tough on his assistant coaches. Man up. Like you're making $500,000 as a coordinator, or so what? Your coach is on your case because you have a bad game plan and he's tough on you. So what? Deal with it. Like, this is the NFL. This isn't high school football where, you're trying to get every player an opportunity to play. I just, you guys have a good coach. You've got the right system in place, and this narrative on Daboll that he's too tough on these coaches, unfortunately, is probably going to come back to bite him a little bit, because if he doesn't win next year, this is going to come back to bite him for sure, because he's got to win now.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. I'll roll it back just a little bit. We've talked about this before, and I know Novak brought it up, and it's I think it's very true. Daboll, he's got to fix that on the field demeanor, though.
He does.
And it's not about being fiery. Yeah. It's not about yelling at somebody. It's about, and it's not just a perception. It's about, just getting right in a player's face. And that's not the play I called, and you screwed this up. And, that's a little bit different than just being a tough guy, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know back in the day, Parcells and Sims would have it out on the sidelines pretty damn hard, but it was less of a microscope on that stuff then. You got to be a little bit more wary of it now. But everything else, I completely agree with. These guys they've got to toughen up. Big deal. You don't like the head coach. You're not there to like each other. You're there to win a Super Bowl. That's what you're there for. And so if you don't think that this coach allows you, I don't know what Martindale's problem could have been. I can imagine a couple of different things what Martindale might have had a problem with. It's the ridiculous not punting and eschewing field goals, and that, Martindale's probably thinking, I can win this game for you. Punt, kick field goals. Let me win this game. I could, if that's what it was, I get that. I have no idea if that's what it was, but I can understand that.
I heard that he, over his headset, yelled during the Commander game, "You're going to lose this game like you lost the Jet game." To the defense, to
Martindale. Now that was one of the things that was in Pat Leonard's article. Yeah.
Which, if Daboll did say that, dude, you throw for -9 yards. I mean, you can't be blaming the defense on the loss to the Jets. So if he did say that, okay, fine, that you've got 1 point right there, but still, it doesn't matter. Like, I agree with Mike. Like the on the field antics, yelling at the quarterback and making it seem like it's not my fault, I have more of a problem with. Behind the scenes stuff, get over it. That's just normal stuff that happens. You're gonna have to put up with it.
I'll tell you this. There was a guy 2 years ago that was doing similar things that Daboll was on the sidelines. He was getting a bad reputation in the media. Fans were starting to grumble. That guy's name was Dan Campbell. And now you have him as sort of a guy that everyone's holding up as, fiery coach. He's getting these guys ready to play. And it all goes back. Like we've always talked about this. It's all results based. If you're winning, it's great. And that's what we said about Nick Sirianni last year. When guys like Nick Sirianni start to fail, they're out the door a lot quicker than other guys. Now, I don't see Daboll as a douchebag like Sirianni. I see him as sort of a guy who's hot-tempered and he's got some outbursts, but it's a little bit different than some of the other clowns we've seen in a position where once they start losing, you want to yank them immediately. Yeah. And it'll be really interesting to me in the next week if Sirianni does get canned, because as much as I think the guy's a douche, I don't think he deserves to be fired.
Yeah, it's interesting that we brought this up because I made a bunch of random notes this week, which I usually don't, and I was all over this. I was all over in my notes about, we'll have a good time tonight picking on Mike McCarthy, but there's no way he should be fired. That just doesn't make any sense. Matter of fact, we say we want him to stay, and in some ways we do, but in other ways, firing him just feeds us. It's like this team is a train wreck. Like, it gives us that emotion and all that. So yeah, Dallas should stand pat. Philly should stand pat. I'm a little bit looser on Philly because, if they think they made a mistake with Sirianni, this year's an excuse to pull the plug if they want to. But yeah, it's, Sirianni's a different case. He seems like he might be in over his head to me. Had great coordinators last year, lost him. I don't remember if it was a game last year, I think, Scott, you and I were talking about this where like Jalen Hurts had to tell Sirianni to settle down. I think it was a playoff game last year.
No, it was this year. It was the game against the Chiefs. He started going on with the Chiefs like this. He puts his hand up and Hurts puts his hand down and sort of tells him to settle down. And Sirianni just gives him a smile. But it's like your player is keeping the coach in check. I mean, that to me is it's pretty bad.
So I'm if I'm Dallas or Philly, if you're the ownership of that team, general managers, whoever, you got to stand pat right now. I mean, it's very, like I said, Sirianni's a little bit different case to me because of his annex and because, as Cardone pointed out earlier, this complete laydown that they did when things just started going not their way a little bit. They just laid down.
I got to put some of like I said, I got to put some of that on the players too. That there's no way that could be for the Sirianni and the coaching staff. It's got to be a combination of a lot of factors. But I'm in agreement with you guys certainly on both those, McCarthy and Sirianni. I didn't think really for a minute that either one was going to be fired. I really didn't. Of course the media loves the frenzy that they went into on Monday, which was ridiculous. It goes into my pet peeve a little bit with the sports media. You guys know how I feel about this stuff, especially during when the playoffs start, because the overreactions are absolutely psychotic and maniacal. But they basically had Belichick sliding into his own parking spot at AT&T Stadium there, for God's sakes. And it's just amazing how that it starts from these networks that put that out there, and then everyone just believes that this is what should happen, without really considering it or thinking about it. Like, well, I was told that it should happen. So yeah, McCarthy needs to go. Why? Like you said, look at the body of work, look at everything else. I don't know not sure why that Dallas was, they were as tight as a drum. That was the tightest Cowboy team I've ever seen take the field in this modern era of Dallas Cowboy football. We know the history. We know that it's been 28 years. They must hear it all the time. But these are now played. That roster, that coaching staff, the pressure is so intense and on fire right now that that's what's going to beat them. The Dallas Cowboys are going to just now beat themselves each and every year. They'll get through and we know that they are talented enough to win 12 games every year. That's what they do. They win divisions, make the playoffs every year. But now they are so mentally destroyed. And I blame the sports media for that. This team is so shot right now that they can't get out of their own way. Right, guys? I mean, you saw it early on. They looked – Green Bay came in as loose as Grey Goose coming in there.
They got them one too, yeah.
Yeah. And Dallas was tight as a drum, and you saw it immediately. So that I attribute that more to the sports media than as far as game planning or anything else.
Go ahead, Novak.
The Jets have more playoff wins in the last 20 years than the Cowboys, and the Jets haven't been in the playoffs in 13 years. Let that sink in.
That's outstanding.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I was going to use that stat because someone said, look at how good Mark Sanchez was, really, because most of those playoff wins came with Sanchez. But as Giant fans, what I was going to say even is look at the memes that are coming out about the Cowboys and everything about the 1995. And you have so many humorous takes that people go to. And I heard a stat just as bad as that Jets one. The Packers have more playoff wins at AT&T Stadium than the Cowboys do after that one.
That is great.
This is awesome.
So like you're saying,
it's a good time. It's a good time.
It all starts funneling down. It's not as bad as the Red Sox was with the curse and everything like that. But it's one of those things where the media now brings this up every time the Dallas is getting ready for a playoff game. Oh no.
It's Cardone said it. They were wound tight as a drum. And a lot of that is on them. It's on what they've built there and who they purport themselves to be. There's not an ounce of humbleness inside that building. Now I will go all the way down to the field on the players and say, there's actually some Dallas players in this day and age that I don't mind. And that's a pretty big thing for me to say. But right from the top down, they have built this thing. They've built this aura intentionally. And their fans have bought into it and spew it back out. And their media, not just their media, because their media has seeped into everything on ESPN. Every show on ESPN has got a Cowboy fan on the panel somewhere, right? So this is what they do. They wind themselves so tight with these expectations that are completely unrealistic. And it just builds this bomb of this really, really ginger thing that they put together every year. And when it comes playoff time and when it comes winning time, it's so easy to burst. And that's going to be a tough thing for them to overcome. all the BS about the star and them boys. You've got that we have seen in our lifetime 4 Giant Super Bowl wins, 5 Super Bowl games. Sorry, Novak.
I love how you have apologizing.
You have to
Novak.
be like a 72-year-old Dallas fan to have seen 4. Yeah. There's not many. We're getting to the point where you're gonna see a Dallas fan under 40, and you just call bullshit on their ass. Why are you cheering for a team you've never seen them win? Thank God the tapes have been preserved for proof.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we are with this team now. And these windows where you can go and win 12 games every year, they close quick. Yeah. Sorry, Cardone.
No, I jumped in a little too quick. I want to give just a quick baseball analogy, because I'm a lifelong Yankee fan, and I've always said the New York Yankees are the Dallas Cowboys of Major League Baseball. It's the same exact shit, where this team, the Yankees, and now they've started to finally fall off a little bit, not even making the playoffs, that kind of thing. But the same exact thing where they would win 103 games, win divisions, and then get into the playoffs and can't fucking hit a wiffle ball. You would see everything just shut down in the playoffs immediately. And every Yankee fan knows what I'm talking about. Scott, I know you're a Yankee fan, so it was painful. It's the same exact thing, just a different sport. So what the Cowboys are experiencing right now, it's the same exact thing as the Yankees. The expectations are so absolutely ridiculous, and we think that this team wins every year. And taking it from a Yankee fan, we don't. The Yankees don't win. They've won 1 championship since 2000. 1. It's the same shit. People just think they win all the time. It's the same thing with the Dallas Cowboys. This team doesn't win dick. And it's just and what I love is that I already saw one clip the other Monday or whatever it was that, or I don't know if he said it or not, but Jerry Jones, message from Jerry Jones is very clear. Win. We're the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. This is the Dallas Cowboys. Well, there you go, Jones. You're fucking putting gasoline on this already fire, you idiot.
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite of what you should be saying right now.
Right.
And I know the Yankees
a little bit of humble.
I know the Yankees playoff record is a lot better than the Cowboys, but if you take off all the wins that they've had against the Twins, it might not be so
good. That's right. Yeah, exactly, Scott.
So it's every time that the Yankees would go in the postseason, I was never scared if they were playing the Twins. And then as soon as it was someone else, I don't care who else it was, I was like, holy shit, they're going to lose.
Well, yeah. But it's the same thing. When you have the expectations every year, as Yankee fans, we know every freaking year they have to win the World Series. And you can't tell me, just go back. Alex Rodriguez was one of my favorite players. I love the guy. He was another guy that was just murdered by Yankee fans, and the guy would just collapse in the postseason because the pressure was, the guy is a human being. So it would drive me crazy when the media and especially the fans, would just pile on to add to the pressure. And believe me, I have no I'm enjoying every minute of this Dallas Cowboy, run of 28 years now, not even making not only the Super Bowl, guys. We all know they haven't even made an NFC Championship game, which is just amazing. I think it's only Washington and Detroit, I guess. Yeah.
The Browns.
Well, I mean, just the NFC, I guess.
NFC, yeah.
As far as just making a championship game, I think it's just Washington and Detroit that have a longer drought. So it's amazing. I mean, they're in the depths of the bottom of the NFC in terms of just making a championship game appearance. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's what you were going into there, Cardone. That's exactly what got me going on this. Is 2 or 3 different players, and Jerry Jones, McCarthy, I think may have even said it. That is not our standard.
Yeah.
By the definition of the word standard, it is absolutely the standard of the Dallas Cowboys to win 12 games and lose in the playoffs. That is who you are. That is what you do until you do something different. I mean, that's what that's what I mean. No, they talk about, like you said, we're the Dallas Cowboys. We know, and we've seen what the shit you just put out there before. It was very evident today that you were the Dallas Cowboys. We saw it unfold live.
Well, and 2 things came out of that game for me. The first was the emergence of Love. He really, stuck it to Dallas in the playoff game, and he showed a lot of poise and made a lot of clutch throws. And Dan Quinn's defense looked horrific at times with guys wide open. But then the second thing is, and I haven't heard this talked about too much, CeeDee Lamb looked like he did not want to be on that field. And again, go back to the Giants playoff game when they lost in, 2018? And Beckham got ripped for not wanting to be there and going on the boat the week before. Mm-hmm. If this starts snowballing, CeeDee Lamb might be putting that group now where people are like, hey, can you win the big one? Can you win anything?
It's always got to be a wide receiver, right? In a big spot. Yep. They play a first half with 3 targets and they shut it down. I think of Randy Moss in the 41-0 game.
Guys, I almost predicted the pick 6 Sunday night with Green Bay. And if you guys recall, there was a clip as they were going to commercial break. I think it was 20-0 at the time, second quarter, and they showed a clip of CD and kind of barking at Dak as they're walking off the field on the previous possession. So I said it out loud too. I'm like, all right, man, go ahead, force it into him. Like, CD, force the ball in there. And what happened on the next? That was the most. Was that not the most? Like, I don't know. Like, just easiest pick 6 you could ever see in terms of one of those where as soon as the guy it grabs it, I don't know who it was on the Packers who returned it, but I'm like, oh my God, like he was gone, the game was over, and that ended the season. And I'm like, yeah, I was saying, I'm like, yeah, that's why I jumped off the couch. I'm like, yeah, CD, force it into him, throw it in there, Dak, go ahead. And you know what's great about that play too, which all the little things, if you notice, now the guy was gone, like I said, as soon as he caught it, but there were at least 3 or 4 offensive linemen who at least made the token effort to jog and try to. And Dak, if you notice, fucking just stood there and just watched it happen. He didn't even move, which was amazing, awesome.
And I thought was interesting. Jordan Love, while young, had a really interesting take on that. They asked him the question of, you don't have a number 1 receiver. How are you, doing what you're doing? And he basically said, yeah, the good thing about not having that is I don't feel the pressure to have to get him the ball.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Right? And you think about that. You just mentioned it, Cardone. I felt like Dak felt pressured in the second half to get CeeDee Lamb the ball because he hadn't gotten enough targets. And I think that is, you see that in other organizations where I've got this number 1 guy making $17 million a year. I have got to throw him the ball, and they end up getting picked off because they telegraph their pass to these guys. Interesting that he said that, and I wonder if there's something to that moving forward with these organizations that they think, why are we paying these guys $18 million, $20 million to be the number 1 guy, and our quarterback's going to feel obligated to try to get him the ball?
Think about every year, though, how many wide receivers turn into divas, and because they complain about not getting the ball, it disrupts the team chemistry.
Yeah.
Going back to A.J. Brown a little bit, but it happens every year.
You guys know that better than anybody.
But isn't it interesting, guys? I've always, if you go back, think about some of the recent, Dallas has always had that guy. Yep. Terrell Owens, Dez Bryant, they always had that guy. And isn't that interesting? And it seems like in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, it has to, no matter what happens that's going on in that game, it costs them playoff games, just forcing the ball where it shouldn't go. Yep. And not it's unbelievable how, if you look at their recent history, it seems to be a chronic problem with the Cowboys. I mean, it happens. Yeah. Yes, there's diva wide receivers all around the league, but for Dallas always seems to have the worst.
I'll tell you, to quote our friend Mike Singletary, I mean, how many of those big diva wide receivers are wearing Super Bowl rings around?
Yeah.
Can't win with them. Can't win with them.
Yeah, so there was a lot of action this week. We saw the games. Actually, we were out watching the games on Saturday, so we were together watching the Houston Cleveland game, and then the nightcap was the Chief game. So I mean, we got to see 2 non-competitive games. Got to see some good performances from C.J. Stroud. Got to see the transformation of the place we were at from a sports bar to a disco, which was.
Are you going to set this up, Scott?
Wasn't even a disco.
Where's this going?
Complete with the dancing Marino while his team is getting shredded on the TV.
I loved Marino. Guy wearing Marino was great.
I've never seen a transformation like we experienced in my life, and I'm 52 years old, and never in my life have I experienced what I saw on Saturday night.
So Mike put it great. Mike said, so we were at an establishment called Mulligan's, and he said Mulligan's at any one time can be 3 different bars. And it really was over the course of the night. It started out as a sports bar, everyone just hanging out. And then all of a sudden we were at a long table and we were asked to sort of move to an open table, which we took. And they took that table, broke it down, and turned it into a DJ stand. And all of a sudden it became like a nightclub. Yeah. And on the other side of the bar, you have pool tables. Yeah. So you got your and you got pool tables going, and you got sports watching.
If you get from one side to the other, all you have to do is get up to go to the men's room, and like you're in a nightclub, then you go to a sports bar, and then you're in a pool hall, all in about 20 feet.
Yeah. And to throw a wrinkle at you guys, so that transformed into a nightclub. What was that? That was Saturday. Or was that Sunday?
Saturday night.
So if you go on Friday at 8:00, it turns into country music night.
Oh, what? You've mentioned that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I just want to say that it wasn't like a slow transformation. It happened within 10 minutes because they moved us to this other table. I'm talking to you guys. Like at this point, we've had a lot of beer and we're probably not paying a whole lot of attention. I look up and there are people twerking and dancing, and I'm like, wait a minute! 10 minutes ago, not even, there was a bunch of guys in this dark bar just drinking beer, and now.
Novak, you can relate to this. I seriously, we were at like a North Carolina / South Carolina like sports bar, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, within 10 minutes, we're at the Jersey Shore, or we're like up in North Jersey somewhere. I can tell a lot of places. I went to North Jersey. I tell you, that's what happened. I'm like, what? Where am I? Yeah, that was wild. Yeah.
It was like nothing I've ever seen. It was
midget
wild.
DJs.
Yeah.
Midget twin DJs.
Twin midget DJs.
Yeah.
I didn't even see them walk in, and then I look up and they're spinning records.
Yeah.
Before I went to the bathroom and came back, they were out there.
It's like that. What's the guy, Stefan from Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
This place has everything. Twin midget DJs, pool tables.
So while we could catch action, we saw C.J. Stroud play really damn well for his first playoff game, and we saw, the Chiefs. The Chiefs did enough to get by the Dolphins. That wasn't really a very close game or a great game. I mean, outside of the Hill touchdown, the Dolphins didn't do much. I did think it was funny when it was so cold that Mahomes' helmet shattered.
Yeah.
And even in that sequence, they got that wrong because the officials are supposed to have him sit out a play or have them use a timeout while he does an equipment change. They just let him run another helmet out on the field, put it on, and get ready to go.
I mean,
they didn't let him play with it.
I was just incredibly impressed and proud that Taylor Swift braved the elements to support her boyfriend.
Yeah.
I mean, did you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
Good for her to brave the elements in the box that she was in with her heavy coat and her heat and everything else to go out there.
Was she there?
Travis Kelce.
She was there.
Yeah, she was there.
How do you know she was there?
How'd you figure that out?
You must have some insider info. Yeah.
That was the article. She braved the elements.
Yeah.
She was in a suite.
She couldn't even see out the window because it was probably
fogging
70,
up.
It was 78 in the suite. It was -2 outside, -20.
Now, one thing we didn't cover on the pod last week, but we talked about this when we were together, and we saw this play out over the weekend, though. So the Buffalo game against the Steelers was moved to Monday, where they played before the Eagle-Buck game. So they played Monday. The Chiefs played Saturday. There's a 2-day differential there in a playoff game. I don't know necessarily when you talk about player safety and fairness. How is that fair? They're going to play on Sunday now, but I think they're playing Sunday the early game, not even the late game.
No, I think it is the later game, Scott.
Is it the later game?
It is.
It's the Sunday night game.
Yeah, Sunday. Yes, it's they play 6:30 local time up in Buffalo there. But yeah, to your point. Well, we as soon as they postponed and moved the game without knowing all the finals and everything, I think we probably were all thinking that, right? I think we were texting it to each other and saying, "Here we go." Like now, the Chiefs do have to travel to Buffalo at least. But to your point, 2 extra days. That's a huge difference. 1 is bad enough. 2 extra days. puts the Bills at a definitely a disadvantage there. So I know we'll get into our predictions and whatnot, but I mean, I'm sure the Bills are just happy to be getting the Chiefs in their building, but I would certainly be pretty pissed off. I'm a Bill fan about the extra time, the extra preparation time.
And the Bills' injuries are piling up too. They had several in that game. This week, actually, there were quite a few. I mean, Tyler Higbee for the Rams had his knee blown out on a pretty low hit from a Lion defender, and that was really to me the only game that was competitive. I thought the Lions did really well. I thought Stafford going back to Detroit and Pakua was just amazing. I mean, rookie receiver, almost 200 yards. And just at the end, I think the Lions just had too much for them. And I think Stafford was injured. I think actually Stafford was concussed and not forced to go through the concussion protocol after we saw his eyes roll into the back of his head, which to me, I think Novak said this before. In the playoffs, nothing goes as normal. I mean,
yeah. Well, Novak, was it you that said he had the death stare eyes on the ground on the ground after he got knocked out? Yeah. And then he was just pretending that his shoulder was all kind of strained or whatever. But I think he was out.
If that's a regular season game, he's out of that game. And that's it was going to be my pet peeve. I'm going to go to my backup now because the reality is what happens in the playoffs with the NFL is complete bullshit, because all of the stuff that happens during the year, and I don't know if you guys recognized, but the officiating was so much better this weekend than in the regular season. And we can get into that or not, but I just felt like the games were officiated well. They let things go. The concussion thing wasn't a thing. I saw guys knocking their head on the ground and should have absolutely gone in that blue tent and did not. Now, I'm saying that's right or wrong, but the NFL can talk about player safety and say it's player safety, but in the playoffs, we're going to loosen up a little bit. That's not player safety. So don't give me this bullshit line that you care about player safety, because it is clear to me that once the playoffs hit, everything's off the table. They're just going to do it to make the viewing the best.
Now, I don't want to go down the officiating rabbit hole because I didn't say anything egregious this week, but I will say this: the one game that was competitive was probably the worst officiated game. So was it the worst officiated game because it was competitive, or was it because they were they wanted to make sure things went a certain way? There were times where we'll talk about the Stafford hit there. Stafford was hit helmet to helmet on that play where he looked concussed. No flag, but Mahomes gets lightly shoved after a play, and it's a 15-yarder on a 3rd and 20. On a 3rd and 20. And then you go back to seeing, Nakua get what looked like be interfered with a couple of times, and yet they threw the flag on the Rams a couple of times defending Lions. So what I worry about is when these games are close, these officials still are going to help impact or decide the games, whether it's the playoffs or not. We didn't see it a lot in the other games because, like I said, it was Super Blowout Weekend. It wasn't Super WildCard Weekend.
Super Blowout Weekend.
I would just like someone to take 6 games from week 5 and compare it to 6 games from this past weekend and tell me how many flags were called in both. And I can guarantee that it was half of the amount of flags that were in this past weekend.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting analysis, would it not?
It would be.
Give me some Gen Z. Give me some Gen Z stats.
AWS, get on that one.
Yeah, Darren. AWS. Let's go. Yeah.
Darren.
Yeah. It's funny. We were saying, guys, you mentioned, Scott, the one roughing the passer on Mahomes. Didn't we? Again, this is when nightclub music was going. Marino was dancing around us. The beers were kicking in. It was just a whirlwind around
Marino, Cardone?
What? Marino was he was distracting, man. The guy was just bringing a hell of a Flavor Flav kind of flavor out there. I don't know how else to describe it. Then
halfway through the game, he didn't give a crap what was happening to the Dolphins.
No.
He was dancing and twerking. And
no.
So we have to say this guy had a Marino jersey on. Let's just
Dan Marino jersey. So anyway, but do you guys remember? Think of a time, because weren't there 2 roughing the passers on the same drive? On that late in the second half, I remember kind of barking about that. Was I imagining that, guys, or I thought there were 2 roughing the passers on that same drive on Mahomes.
I don't know if there was another one. I know the one because
I thought it was the same drive. But I was just thinking, even if it wasn't, think of the time like any one of our quarterbacks. I'll just give this to Scott and Mike. Can you remember a time any Giant quarterback in any game got 2 roughing the passers in one game? Mahomes now is like he's leading the league in pussification, in my opinion. This guy, the look at him and Josh Allen too. I like Josh Allen's fervor and all that. And Mahomes has good fervor too, but these guys looking for flags every little, like tiny little graze that they get when they go to the ground. It's just it's insufferable. That
was almost one of my pet peeves this week was the one play where Josh Allen actually drew a flag. Yeah. If you watch, he snaps his head back as if he's hitting the helmet, but he was actually hitting the shoulder. And then he gets up immediately, springs up faster than he was hit and starts calling for the flag. And sure enough, 2 seconds later, a flag comes flying in. It's like, why reward anyone who if I'm an official and someone starts calling for a flag, even if I was going to throw it, I'm going to keep it in my pocket because first off, I didn't throw it yet. It's after the play. I'm certainly not going to start throwing it now when you're calling for it.
Yeah, it was on the same drive, Cardone. I found it here. It spanned the 3rd and 4th quarter.
Yep.
They were quite a number of plays apart because it was a long drive, but it was a long drive because of the roughing the passers. But the first one came on a 2nd and 13 after the Chiefs lost 3 yards on first down. So that's interesting. The second one was on a
3rd and 20, right?
That was 3rd down, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, 3rd and 20 after the play before Mahomes got called for intentional grounding, which set up the 3rd and 20 and then instantly bailed out. And I think that was the worst of the two. That was that little two-hand bump out of bounds thing. Yeah.
So 2 roughing the passers on the same drive. Unheard of. Yeah. Imagine.
Well, it ought to, of course it ended in a touchdown. It had to. Yeah.
Absolutely had to.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what did we have record-wise last week in the games that we played?
Oh, gosh. It was brutal, man.
All sucked.
Yeah. Novak and I both missed on our Flyers. And so no one – so we got let's see. Well, we all picked Philly. We all picked Cleveland. Mm-hmm. We all picked Dallas. Oh, and on the Flyer games that Cardone or Novak and I got hurt because you guys actually picked the freaking winners in those games somehow. And we went with I went with Miami and Novak went with the Rams, which was much closer than mine. But it ended up with Cost and Cardone 3-3, and Mike and Novak 2-4.
Ah, so this week we got 4 games: Baltimore, Houston to start, KC, Buffalo, San Fran, Green Bay, and Tampa Bay, Detroit. Baltimore, Houston. I'll start with Novak. His thoughts and prediction.
I mean, I don't know. This is a fairly easy one, I would think, but I'll tell you that this past weekend gives me pause. I do like what CJ Stroud is doing with Houston, but I think Houston goes in that category of happy to have won their first playoff game, and they go out and get their asses handed to them. So I'm going to take Baltimore in a 34-10 win.
Cardone?
Yeah, it's my thoughts are almost identical to Novak's there, where as impressed as I was with Houston and their first playoff game with CJ Stroud at the helm, and going into Baltimore is a totally different animal than playing Cleveland at home and Joe Flacco. So Baltimore seems to be, I have to admit, I haven't watched a ton of Baltimore Ravens this year, but we know what they bring. We know their defense is pretty sound. We know how good Lamar Jackson can be. A lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson. And I don't know if you guys were listening to some of, he's got sort of that monkey on his back too, a little bit in the playoffs. He only has 1 playoff win. If he wins the Super Bowl, if he wins the league MVP this year, someone was mentioning, and if he loses to Texans, he'll have more MVPs than playoff wins. So there's pressure on Lamar Jackson. That doesn't mean there's pressure necessarily on the entire team, but I'm kind of dragging out this prediction here. I'm going with the home team here. I'm going with the Ravens. Are we doing scores too, or are we just giving just teams?
Just give me a prediction.
Yeah, we can throw a score.
Yeah,
I didn't write Novak's down, but yeah.
All right. Yeah, Ravens. Kind of similar to what Novak had, I guess. I'll go 31-16 Ravens.
What'd you have, Novak? 38 something?
34-10.
34-10.
Mikey.
Yeah, hard to argue with any of that. I'll tell you, Cardone went into it on Lamar Jackson a little bit. And I had one thing to add. I saw an article on ESPN today that said Lamar Jackson's just got a different look in his eye this year, which is, of course, those are. I mean, that kind of bleeds into my pet peeve a little bit. So I'm not going to go down the road on it. But I'll tell you this: the last time I heard it was about Tom Brady right before the second Giants Super Bowl. So we know how that turned out. But yeah, so they can't point to stats. They can't point to prior wins or anything. So it's the look in the eye that he's got right now. So I say the look in the eye is good enough this week. And Baltimore wins 28-14.
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me. Cardone touched upon the concerns I have. And that's that I see a parallel between the way the Ravens have been and the Cowboys have been. They're dominant in the regular season. They get against teams that can play defense, and things happen. Unfortunately, I don't think Houston plays a lot of defense. And I also think that you're playing this game in Baltimore. It's going to be probably bad weather again, cold. C.J. Stroud's going to have to rely on running game. And Nico Brown, by the way, one of his receivers just rolled out for the rest of the playoffs with I think he broke his collarbone. So I am going to go Ravens, but I'm going to have this be closer and lower scoring than I think people might think. So just 20-17. Next game is KC Buffalo. So since I went last, I'll go first. This is an interesting game to me. I mentioned earlier the Buffalo injuries are piling up, especially in their secondary. But this Chiefs team, to me, is not the Chiefs teams of old. This is going to be Mahomes' first road playoff game that he's ever had to play. And I would love to say he's going to Buffalo. There's going to be snow. There's going to be cold. You get that at Arrowhead, too. So it's not like he's not, experienced those conditions. He saw it last week against Miami. But I just think there's something there with the Bills team that I don't know if they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but I think it sets up a Baltimore-Buffalo matchup, which I think is going to be really, really interesting. And I see the weather conditions aren't going to be great in Buffalo, so I see this one being moderate, so 24-21 Buffalo. I don't know if it's going to be a late field goal or not, but
I guess if we're going reverse order, that I'm up here.
You're up.
I think the injuries, and I think that the unfairness of the moving of the date and all of that other stuff going on, I think that just feeds Buffalo's fire right now. I think Buffalo wants to be in this position. I think they want to be, it's rare for a Buffalo team, I think, the last couple of years to be in a playoff game where things are going against them a little bit. In terms of stuff like that. I think this team's ready to win. I'm with Scotty. I don't know if they're ready to win the Super Bowl or not, but I see them getting by a Kansas City game that, as we spoke about earlier, will start raising questions about Mahomes and no, I'm just kidding. That there will be no questions about Mahomes. But yeah, I see Buffalo in this one, probably very close game all the way through. Depending on the weather, probably low scoring. So I'm going to assume there's going to be some weather. So I'm going to say Buffalo pulls it out 17-14.
Is Taylor going to be in attendance?
I hope not. But if there's one stadium in the NFL that would say, no, she's banned, she can't come here, then that would be the only one I can think of.
By the way, last week, they allowed people to pick their own seats. So as long as you could clear out a seat, you could actually stand in that spot for your seat.
What?
First come, first serve, because of the snow.
Yeah.
Is that why when they opened the door, I saw that they opened the doors and just a mass of people keep running in like Black Friday.
Yeah, because they were all trying to find to get the best seats.
The old defunct Eastwind Airlines or something, where you just walk on the plane and pick your own seat. Jesus.
Eastwind Airlines. I didn't have that on my bingo card for tonight.
No. They flew from Trenton to Greensboro. I flew this thing a couple times. Jeez. Lucky to be alive. Am I up, I think?
Yeah.
You're up.
So I guess I'm going along the same lines as you guys here. I just think, without getting into the X and O's, I just think it's the Bills' time to beat this team. I just think, everything lined up for Buffalo for this game to be, I'm going to call it Rich Stadium. I don't even know what the name of the stadium is now, but I still refer to it as Rich Stadium. So this is what the Buffalo Bills have been waiting for, to get this Kansas City Chief team in their building at that place with their Bills Mafia fans, all that stuff that we're going to see this weekend. So I just think it's the Bills' time to beat the Chiefs for no other good reason than they're just due. I think they're just due. They're going to make up for the 13-second debacle that they are still feeling the pain from. So I think the reason and another reason, things happen for a reason, right? And the Bills beating Miami to win the East on Sunday night, the final game of the NFL season, this is exactly the game, that is they got Pittsburgh at home because of that, and now they got the Kansas City at home. Really, everyone was pointing to this game. So Bills take this one at Buffalo. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a little bit low scoring too. It's gonna be the weather's gonna be pretty nasty. Give me a weird score like 22-17. Buffalo.
By the way, in like week 14, according to AWS, the Bills had less than a 5% chance of making the playoffs. So again, their stats are dead on with their predictions. Is it Highmark Stadium they play at? Who plays at Highmark Stadium?
It is. I've seen it here. It's Highmark.
I have no idea what Highmark is. I just saw that. Yeah.
I think we talked about this in season 1 or 2, but did we ever decide why there's a train noise at Buffalo? Is that did we ever kind of figure that one out, or is that just random?
I remember talking about that. No, we never figured that one out.
Cardone or Novak?
Novak. So I'll give I'm not going to take too long, but this is my longest breakdown of these games. I want so badly for the Bills to win this game because I hate the Kansas City Chiefs at this point. And so Devin Tier is a good friend of mine, and anyone that's listening to the podcast, it's Scott's brother-in-law, coincidentally. Nicest guy in the world. I want so badly for his team to win the Super Bowl. Even though I'm a Jets fan, I'm supposed to hate the Bills, but I don't, because I want him to win so badly. But I feel as if the Chiefs are the team that has the Bills' number. And I've always felt that. Like, the Bills last year barely won their week 1, their first playoff game against the Dolphins. Skylar Thompson was quarterback. And then they went out and shit the bed against the Cincinnati Bengals. They've had some injuries last week to their linebacker. I think it was Bernard, who was also the guy that replaced Milano, if I remember this correctly. I feel like their luck has run out. I'm a Josh Allen fan. I love watching this guy, but I think he makes some big mistakes in this game. I think the Chiefs have their number. I'm going with the Chiefs in this game, 24-14.
It's hard to argue with that. I mean, the Bills are not a solid playoff team either. So there's also that conspiracy theorist in me that says the NFL wants the Chiefs to advance because of Taylor Swift.
The NFL absolutely wants the Chiefs and the 49ers in the Super Bowl. No doubt in my mind that they do. So I'll wait to see if the Chiefs win this game. I'm probably going to pick them against the Ravens, but I do believe the NFL wants the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Well, and that's good because you're up next on the San Francisco Green Bay prediction.
I mean, I'll make this one a quick one. San Francisco is going to blow the doors off the Green Bay Packers, in my opinion. I think it'll start off close, but I think because there's going to be some rust for the 49ers to get off, I think by the second half they will blow the doors off the 49ers, and I think they're going to blow them out. I'm going to call it 35-13.
Cardone.
Yeah, I'm going with the home team again here, especially the Niners. The Niners coming off their bye week. As impressive as Green Bay looked against Dallas, we've already covered that, of course. I see them running into a much more difficult task in going across the country there and playing the San Francisco 49ers out there. So yeah, I like the Niners big too. I'm going to go with the score. I just see Purdy having a good game. Kittle, McCaffrey. We know all the players on the Niners, and not to take anything away from Green Bay, but they're gonna find out why they're a 1 seed, Green Bay, against the Niners on whatever that was, that Saturday night, I think. And give me the Niners. I'll go like a 30-20, 10-point win.
Mike?
Yeah, I think San Francisco's fall into a little bit of a trap here, but they're going to be fine. But I know they wouldn't have been playing Dallas had they won, but I think San Francisco saw their path to the Super Bowl just open wide open when Dallas at halftime of that game. And I think San Francisco might come out here a little overconfident and a little sort of expecting to blow Green Bay out. And I don't think Green Bay's a very, super good team, but I don't think they're a team you want to toy around with either. But I think San Francisco just like through the fourth quarter just increases the lead a couple of times, just kind of wears them out a little bit. It ends up winning something like 38-30, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I always have visions of LA back when it was the LA Rams and San Francisco when the Giants would play into the 80s. And it would be, the Giants had good teams back then, but they would always go up against these guys, whether the regular season or the playoffs in certain years. And it seemed like it was always sunny out there. The weather was nice in the middle of January, and just the guys they're throwing the ball all over the place. They're hitting Pete Holacek over the middle, or they're hitting, whoever Brent Clark or whoever the San Diego or San Francisco tight end would be. And just the Giants would play a decent game, but in the end, it wouldn't even be really competitive. And I see this similar to what Novak had. I called this game 37-13 San Fran, and I see it just be one of the games. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be sunny. Well, I think it's at night for us, but I think it starts out sunny there and then it gets a little dark. But I just don't see it being one of those games where Green Bay can hang the entire game with them.
Yeah. I think you're thinking of Brent Jones.
Brent Jones,
the tight end.
What I call Brent Clark.
Yeah, like Dwight Clark. You combine Dwight Clark with Brent Jones,
which is fine.
Brent Jones is another one. Just annoying tight ends that have been just victimizing the Giants for decades. Yeah.
I just see Brent Jones running wild every now and then. I'm in my dreams still. It's like what the. So the last game is Tampa Bay Detroit, and I think this one's going to be similar to the San Fran game. I just see Detroit really riding a wave of momentum, and I think Tampa Bay probably was a little bit fortunate to play a Eagle team that was downtrodden there. And I think Baker Mayfield is getting a lot of praise for this year, and maybe rightfully so. I haven't been that impressed with him. I mean, he's coming off of a game where he put up 9 points against the Panthers a week before. So I just don't see Tampa Bay being able to handle Detroit all game long. Mayfield's banged up. I can't see him having the mobility that he needs. And I look at this very similar to the San Francisco game, and I'll call this one 34-12. Detroit.
Love the 12 spot. That's a good
12's great.
Could
be missed extra point. Could be you don't know what's in that field goal. You don't know what that is, and they're going for two, not getting it. Yeah.
That's why these football pools like the Super Bowl pools. There's no bad numbers now, man.
No,
you can win anywhere on that board, baby.
Yeah, you used to get a 2, you'd be all pissed off.
Yeah, the 2 5s and the 9s. God damn it! Yeah, now it's woo.
I can take that. Yeah, I did notice Novak mentioned the officiating being a little different. I did notice in the playoffs, coaches are kicking field goals. I did notice that throughout the games.
That is true.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to our regular scheduled broadcast here. I just don't think Tampa Bay is stopping this Detroit story here. The Detroit's story's been kind of a cool story all year. The only thing that keeps Tampa in this game is if Baker's so due to go back to Baker. Detroit's going to give him problems, and the only thing that stops Detroit here is if the coach goes nuts. What's his name? Campbell. If Campbell goes nuts with going for it on fourth down in his own territory and ripping off fake punts on 4th and 17, keep Tampa in the game that way. But yeah, I see Detroit doubling up Tampa. I got 34-17.
I think. Did Cardone already go? Did you go?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Novak. Go ahead. I think I'm last here. Or
you're up.
Cardone's up.
I thought you went.
Okay. Well, when you mentioned, I think was it Novak? You just mentioned that, or Dallas losing kind of opened the the doors for San Fran, or was it Mike? I don't. It doesn't matter. But I feel the same way for or Rosa Scott. I don't know. It was one of you guys. I feel the same way for like Detroit here, because now Detroit gets the home game with Dallas's loss, and I feel like that's something that like I don't see. Like the Lions' season is not going to end at home here. That all happened for a reason too, I think. And not that the Lions don't deserve to be at home in this divisional round. I mean, they came a bad call away from being the 2 seed. So, this Lion team, all year they've been pretty consistent. Especially at home as well. I think Tampa Bay is going into a buzzsaw there, similar to maybe Houston or something where they're kind of thrilled that they got the 1 win, and now they're going into a lion's den, pun intended, going up there in Detroit. So I think Dallas's loss, kind of just again opened the floodgates for both San Francisco and Detroit. Detroit wins this game at home. Their season's not ending at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this round. So give me the Lions. I think they're going to put up some points too. I think give me 34-16 Detroit.
Novak, round it out.
Yeah. So my take on this is probably a little different. I feel like the Lions are that team that shot their load a little bit in the week 1 win at home. I'm going to pick them to win, but I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people are giving it credit for, because I think the Bucs can go into this game a little loosey-goosey, not having to work. They've done what they needed to do. They got a home playoff game. They won. And I think it's going to be close. I think this is the best, closest game of the week. So I'm going to say 21-20 Lions, but barely win on a last-second touchdown.
Wow.
All right.
So yeah, last week we had 2 different picks. This week we have exactly 1. So it's gonna be hard to pull away or catch everybody.
Am I the only one that picked a different one with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I guess
we got to make this more interesting next week. Can we talk about this beforehand next time?
Yeah.
I just realized I picked all the home teams.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
Well, in this round, though, that's really not a bad thing. That's one of those things where
I almost picked the Bucs in this game, just so you know. But at the last second, you guys had convinced me with your breakdown, so I can't go last next time.
Yeah, I was leaning with the Chiefs with you, Novak, for all the reasons you said. But I gotta believe that it's just the Bills' time to push through past this team. But yeah, they've had their number. So that was the one I wanted to pick, Kansas City, but I just couldn't. And I hate saying this because I hate when I hear this on the with the sports media, but I picked the Bills to win to win it all back when we made our Super Bowl predictions when we started the season. I had the Eagles and Bills. The Eagles are gone, but if I keep with that, then the Bills are still there. I'm gonna stick with them right now.
Well, I'll give you this. We didn't do this last week, and I'll start with Novak on this. Who do you think the Super Bowl teams will be?
God, I hate to be the homer on this and pick the simple, the likely champions, because Mike picked this at week 1, so I got to give him credit. It's hard not to see a scenario where it's not the 49ers and the Ravens.
Yeah. Cardone?
Well, like I just said, I think for the only reason of just sticking with my preseason prediction, I'll say Buffalo somehow sneaks by the Chiefs and then somehow sneaks by the Ravens as well. So give me the Bills in the AFC, and the 49ers are hard to go against the 49ers. So give me San Fran and Buffalo.
Likey.
I didn't know that I picked the Niners and Ravens in week
You
1.
did.
So I feel compelled to stay with that, so I can go wire to wire. I do, if they both win, I might go against it and pick Buffalo next week. But for now, I'll stay with my week 1 pick of 49ers Ravens.
There's something that tells me the Detroit's going to be that Cinderella team this year.
Ooh.
But I also agree with you guys on Baltimore and the 49ers. I will say this. I will be interested to see, because we look at officiating so much, if one of the games impacted this week adversely by officiating is that Bills-Chiefs game because of the Swift factor.
No,
I'm really going to be watching that one.
Yeah. If that game's an officiating shit show in the Chiefs' favor, I will pick them to beat Baltimore because it's in. It's
Can't
in.
stop that train.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'll do the reverse that we did for the picks. So Novak, pet peeves.
So my pet peeve, I don't know who the pet peeve is with. So if you define the pet peeve, it's what bothers you the most, right? So I don't have anyone to blame on this, but do you guys know what was the highest rated TV show on Sunday at 1 o'clock?
I do not.
I do not.
It was the replay of the Bengals and the Chiefs from last year.
Oh. What?
So,
Seriously?
yeah. So my pet peeve is that the NFL has us by the balls, right? And we're angry about the Peacock situation, which I am still, that is a pet peeve of all pet peeves, that the fact that Peacock actually had a game to stream and old people like my father couldn't figure out a way to stream the game and couldn't watch the game. But when I saw that was the highest rated show on a Sunday at 1 o'clock and it was a game from last year, reminded me that, and it's a pet peeve of mine, that the NFL just has us by the balls and they can do whatever they want, and we can complain and we can scream and we can bitch at them because they have turned this game into something that we don't love and it's not from the 80s and 90s, but it's just yet another reminder that they own the media. They own this whole thing, and I am saddened by it. And the fact that it wasn't even close to, guys. It, like a basketball game that was showing against it, was like 5 points behind it. A game from a year ago scored higher. So that was my pet peeve, and I'm upset, angry, and frustrated by the fact that the NFL is just, they have a coat of armor on them and they can't be beaten.
We didn't get into the whole Peacock thing this week. The NFL is trumpeted as a success. Now, it did underperform almost every wild card game that was out there this year or last year, but it did also pull in a decent amount of people. I don't know how much of that was actual subscribers and how much of that is the multiplier. I heard that they use a system where they decide who's viewing by the number of downloads times the amount of people in a household as like 2.5 or 3. And they do these, it's almost like PFF projections, I think, to come up with a number. We technically did not watch them at our house, the Peacock games. We were out. So were we counted in this estimation? I don't know how that all works, but
did they count the number of people who stole logins to watch it?
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, it's interesting to see. We didn't really get into it, and I don't really want to get into it because there wasn't much to break down on it. Except the NFL is calling it a success, which means they'll probably do it again.
I mean, our thoughts are all pretty clear on it. There's no reason to rehash it. I still just cannot figure out what the NFL owes NBC to do this for them. Yeah. That's the part of it I can't wrap my head around, is why in the world would the NFL willingly? I mean, yeah, it pulled pretty decent numbers, I know, but it would have been 80 times more. I mean, that was supposed to be the best game of the weekend.
Yep.
It should have been the highest rated game of this weekend, and it certainly should have been based on its primetime slot and who was playing in it. It would have been by far the highest viewed game of this weekend. Instead, it was the last and the worst in 2 years, but it's a success somehow. So, okay.
I mean, they just proved that they could put the Jaguars and the Cardinals in, China, and they would get ratings and advertisers and
people
watching that game.
Yeah.
And I'm frustrated by the fact that they know it and they don't care and they can do whatever they want to, and it just doesn't matter.
Well, and you had a NBC employee, Mike Florio, using his article to sit there and pump up the Peacock thing. So this is a bigger thing. I didn't have this as a pet peeve, and it really should have been, is that now we're using news articles to legitimize whatever plan the NFL has for showing games. Now, Mike Florio is like, I'm a company guy. I'm going to perfectly admit that, and then goes on to support exactly why he's a company guy, saying this is great that they've shown this game on Peacock. It's great to have this option for people. No, it's not. Playoff games should be free for people. They've been free forever. I don't understand this whole idea to try and go and monetize playoff games. And Mike Florio doing it to me and using an article that he wrote as an infomercial is shameless. But then again, sports journalism, as we've talked about with Pat Leonard and the things that are written on all of our teams, it's shameless.
Completely shameless.
Yep. Cardone, pet peeve?
Yeah, as you might imagine, I'm going to stay with the sports media with mine, and the overreactions and the narratives that we've covered many, many times, but particularly this time of year in playoff football, when a team loses, these guys, and we kind of broke it down here tonight on our own pod, with Dallas and Philly and the teams that, are kind of shockingly lose when they're not expected to lose. But one that got me this weekend, they were obliterating Dallas, of course, and as well as they should. Dallas was, everyone thought, they were, a 9-10 point favorite. So that was a pretty surprising loss. But I'll lead into my pet peeve with just the fact that when you watch the recaps on any one of these networks, they barely talk about the team that won at all. I guess there's an opportunity to talk about them the following week. So maybe that's the mindset, is that, all right, well, we can talk about the Texans next week, so we're not even going to talk about their performance or the Packers. Let's just talk about the teams where their seasons are over. But the one that just cracked me up was I'm watching, the recaps on Monday, and they have a segment on the Chiefs-Dolphins game. And this one was, what went wrong with Tua and the Dolphins? And my reaction was, nothing went wrong. Like, what do you mean? They were like, Kansas City was favored by 4.5 points. Miami wasn't expected to win that game. They're playing in fucking 0-degree temperatures at Arrowhead. Kansas City's the defending Super Bowl champions. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, the whole thing. What do you mean what went wrong with Miami? Imagine had Kansas City lost, what the narrative would be. Oh my God, what went wrong with the Kansas City Chiefs? It's amazing how the media they just flip the narrative however they want. And it's understandable for Dallas. They were destroying Dallas for an hour and a half before they even covered other games. That's to be expected. But what are you talking about? What went wrong for Miami? Nothing did, dude. Like, why are you dogged by 4.5 points? So how are you supposed to answer that question? I didn't even listen to the segment because I just like, this is it. And right away, I'm like, you know what? I'll make that my pet peeve. These sports media assholes, you guys know how I feel about it. But I'm a glutton for punishment because I can't pull myself away from the radio or the TV to listen to this shit. I love to be aggravated by these guys. I absolutely love it. So I do it intentionally, and then I come on here and talk about it. But I do it just in my own regular life, just text threads, this, that. I just love being aggravated by this stuff. So short and sweet, pet peeve. But what went wrong for Tua and the Dolphins? Nothing, because everyone predicted Kansas City to win. So explain to me why we're even posing that to the question as a question to the national audience. It's so stupid.
You know what I'd like to, Cardone? I've talked about this before too, is like, so for years, these guys overreact to everything and everyone laughs at them and yells at them. So now their defense is every week on ESPN, let's overreact to week 1. And then they go through. And I'm like, those are not overreactions. That is what you were going to write no matter what the headline of this article
Absolutely.
was. So they found a way to keep overreacting, but by acknowledging that they're overreacting, it's okay. It's funny. Oh, let's overreact.
Oh yeah.
You're not. Yeah. This is your reaction. It's real.
Drives me nuts.
Well, it's funny because at different points of the year, I think we had takes of what was going to happen in the following weeks, right? I think, Mike, at one point you went on this rant about the Cowboys are going to show their true colors over the next 4 weeks, and they ended up winning like 3 of the 4 games. And you came on, you were like, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Easy. Yeah.
Right? And I think, Cardone, you did the same thing at one point. I think you went on a rant about somebody. I can't remember who it was, but maybe it was DeVito. I think it was DeVito.
Oh, it was DeVito. I was knocking Fox for saying, get to know Tom DeVito. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get to know this scrub who's I'm like, and then I apologize. I'm like, you know what? I owe DeVito, he played pretty well.
Right.
But
you came on and you were like, I was wrong. And I've done that before. Like my picks have sucked in a lot of cases. And you come on here and you say you're wrong. And that's what I kind of like about the free flowing form of a podcast. But if you look at the sports media, like Cardone is saying, they don't ever come and say like, guys, I fucked this up. I was wrong about Justin Fields. I was wrong about the Dallas Cowboys. I was wrong about the Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina, whoever. They never do that, and that is what I find frustrating. And Cardone, you hit right on it. And if they could do that, I'd have a lot more respect. But they never do it.
It's amazing.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah,
Mikey.
Yeah, I got one, and we kind of talked about it earlier a little bit, and I said I was going to back off, but. So my pet peeve, I'm going over to Cardone's neighborhood. I'm going to bitch about the media as well this week. And it's not quite the overreactions, but it's how the media will do this. And this isn't new. A lot of stuff the media does now is just lazy and new, and they don't, they're not good beat reporters like they used to be, but this isn't new. Goes on, but it's funny is they'll look at somebody and this, everyone has certain traits, right? So whether or not, how that trait is defined by the media depends on that person's record at the time. So I wrote down some examples of just the ones that came to the top of my head. But like, Jalen Hurts, we've talked about how the guy never changes, like stone face, right? And actually, I apologize, Cardone, because you did this earlier. But last year that was an icy cold stare of an assassin. This year it's disinterest. There's some other things with Hurts that his body language and stuff, and I'll stay on the Eagles. Sirianni, the media couldn't get enough of this guy last year. They loved him for doing the exact same things he's doing now, but now it's bad. Now he's a buffoon. Like, no, he was a buffoon last year. He just happened to be playing in the Super Bowl, I went back in time a little bit for one. Remember Dom Capers? Remember when he came to the comb over? He came to the Panthers and he had his little notebook, and like after every play he'd write in the notebook, and the Carolina media was just fucking jerking off about that. Like, he's so meticulous. He's so meticulous. And then like 3 years later, after that whole thing circling the drain, they're like, this guy's a nerd. Like, get him out of here with that notebook. Like, get out of it. I remember that one. And of course, our own guy, Eli, right? So Eli had, they never really stopped dogging on Eli. I mean, that was always the same. There was no change. Eli could do anything he wanted, But Favre was in Green Bay. He was playful and fun. And for the Jets in Minnesota, he was reckless. It's like
gunslinger.
He's just doing gunslinger. Yeah, he's a gunslinger. Rodgers, the eccentric quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, to now just a complete nut job when he has a different jersey on, which he's added fuel to that fire a little bit. And then of course tying this back to the Giants a little bit, was Tom Coughlin, who was just you couldn't even be in the same room with this asshole. The media hated him more than the players said they did. Yeah. And then, he goes and wins a Super Bowl, and it's like, he's fully in charge of this team. Tom Coughlin, he didn't change. He might've changed his attitude with the players a little bit, but no, he's even still Tom Coughlin out there, freezing his face off and banging his play sheet into his hand and screaming at people. Now, same guy, same stuff, different reaction.
Yeah. What I love about Coughlin too is that former players of his love the guy.
Yeah.
They still go to bat for him, much like former players of Parcells did for the Giants. And yet they still used to get mocked for like being, hey, guys have to be punctual. Well, shouldn't everyone be punctual? Why is this being mocked? Why you should be punctual?
Yeah. I'm laughing about it now, but if any of my employees happen to listen, which after that rant, I hope they aren't, but if any of them do, they'll know that if I say a meeting's at 5, they better be online at 4:55. I call it the Coughlin rules. They all know. And I got Michael Strahans on my team who've been like, well, make the meeting at 4:55.
Right.
No.
Right.
So I've worked for actually 3 different German companies. And the funny thing about Germans is they're so punctual. And I used to be in a room where I would see a meeting would be at 10 a.m., let's say. 9:58, no one is anywhere inside of the room. 9:59, it's almost like worker bees. You start seeing people heading to the room, heading to the room, heading to the room. By 10 o'clock, they're all in the room, all sitting there, ready to go. And if you set the meeting from 10 to 10:30, you better damn well be done by 10:30, or else people are getting up and just walking out of the room.
10:30.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I like it.
So, my pet peeve is it's those things that players do that just they bring it on themselves when things don't go right. And I have to thank Novak for this, because Novak talked about Dak's "here we go," and once you hear that, you can't unhear it. So you're listening to it entire game.
Yep.
So like every fucking play, "here we go," and as soon as Dallas starts taking it up the chin, that there's going to be someone firing that back at them, just like the Tommy DeVito sign. You don't want anything that defines you as a player to be that obvious that it can be mocked. And I don't know why these guys do this. Like, why does Dak have to do every fucking play? Why can't he do it like once in a while? Why can't he do it like if it's a long set? Why does he do it every single time he's under center? And when it happens, and I don't know if you guys saw this, Love at the very last snap of the game when he's taking a knee goes, "Here we go." Hip, and then he takes the snap and takes the knee. I mean, it was a really quick one. I don't think it was meant to demean Dak, but just why open yourself up for these kind of things? I always wondered that. It's like I get it when it's sort of like the conversation we had with Sirianni being an asshole. Yeah, you're an asshole, and when you're winning, it's good. When you're losing, everyone's going to say, this guy's a raging asshole, and all of a sudden you're going to be public enemy number one. Same thing with like Dak. Why are you doing, "here we go"? Because I can see every other fucking defender, every time they sack him, "here we go," doing the mocking of it. I just don't get why these guys do it.
Is it just part of his cadence, though?
I think he made it part of his cadence, but even like the Mannings, like they did Omaha once in a while. It wasn't every fucking play.
Yeah,
Omaha,
that's a good point.
Omaha.
Yeah.
Every fucking play with Dak, it's "here we go."
Yeah.
And then there's some sort of timing set to that. But every play.
Yeah, it's annoying. And it's funny that Novak had brought that up, because like I was out during that game. I was actually getting ready to go see Nate Bargatze, by the way, which if you get a chance to see him, fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But there were guys like in the bar going, "here we go." Like everyone was doing that. I'll give credit to Bonnie for this one because I didn't notice it. But did you guys ever catch the end of Cam Newton's cadence?
No.
She always used to say it sounds like he's going through the vowels. So, he'd get up to the light, he'd go, "A, E, And once she said that, I couldn't unhear it. And it was all the time.
Yeah, when you can't unhear something, it's the most annoying thing in the world.
I am so glad I did that to you, because that makes me really happy that.
Yeah.
Because you were texting that right this second. He's like, "Damn you, Novak! Now I can't unhear this thing."
I have to.
Well, it's like the Salah cam. You can't unsee it, right?
You can't unsee it. Absolutely.
You can ignore it as long as your brain doesn't know about it.
Right.
So we do have one question this week, and it's from Peacock, and very speculative. His sources, and I put the sources in air quotes
He's
here.
got good sources.
His sources say Barkley will be a Cowboy next year. So how will we all feel when they ride him to a Super Bowl next year? And look, we've talked about this a little bit tonight. The Dallas Cowboys haven't won dick since 1995. Dick. Every year they talk about winning it. If Saquon Barkley somehow goes to the Cowboys and makes them a key competitor and he's the one leading them to a Super Bowl, I actually will take a little bit of that. Will take a little of the pain off of me, because I could say, hey, a former Giant just had to send you to the promised land.
Had to be the one to do it. Yeah, they tried to do it with Parcells too.
Doesn't work. You're going to be from 1995 until like my kids are 70.
Well, My prediction, I don't know about that. Well, first of all, that would be just gross to see Barkley in a Cowboy uniform. I mean, that's first and foremost. I mean, that would be just agonizing. But no, my prediction is the Cowboys. Jerry Jones is going to die, and Cowboy. That's the year the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. So whenever Jones drops dead, the Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl that year. Could be next year, could be 3-5, whatever year it is. Jones is winning, or Jones dying, and the Cowboys are winning that year. That's what's going to happen.
Skeletor.
I think it's gonna be Jones and Namath dying in the same year, and the Jets and the Cowboys are gonna meet in the
there
Super
you go.
Bowl.
I don't think prediction, Novak.
I don't think Dallas can survive Jerry Jones dying with his idiot kids and everything up there. I mean, you'd have to Weekend at Bernie's Jerry Jones if he died. Just put him up in the press box. Put him up there.
Put some sunglasses on him.
Put some sunglasses on him. Get some guys working his arms.
Oh wait, going back to the Barkley. Yeah, right.
They might be doing that already. Now that I think of it.
Is there speculation? Wait, I haven't heard that at all. Is that just Peacock being Peacock and trying to put a?
I have not heard that at all either.
Trying to get us upset here on the pod.
I put his sources in quotes because
I think that is the epitome of deflection right there.
Yes. That is talk about this and don't rip my Cowboys. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not taking that as a serious question. I'll answer it the same way that Cardone did. I would be disgusted. Oh. And I would also hate him in 30 seconds. So I would have no problem making that transition.
Yeah.
The only player ever, not ever, like LT, those guys like that, but the only recent player who could have gone from the Giants to the Cowboys and really turned my boat over would have been Eli. That would have been. Oh, yeah. I couldn't have stomached that.
I don't
but
know.
I'll tell you,
who's a Giant who went to the Cowboys and had a lot of success recently. I mean, we have a couple with the Cowboys coming here. I mean, Everson Walls with the Giants. That was a pretty good one.
Right.
Chris Canty did decent, but was Chris Canty part of those Super Bowl teams? At least one, maybe.
Maybe the last one.
You mean with us?
Hard to remember back then.
He was on. No, Canty was on Super Bowl 46. Yeah.
I'm not fielding that as a serious question. Although I will say this, and Barkley's by no means a diva. He's the opposite of a diva. He's a great personality to have on your team, which I wouldn't want going to Dallas. But I think the Giants feel a lot of pressure to get him the ball to the detriment of our offense sometimes too.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
You guys got anything else tonight?
Man, we covered everything I had, and I had extensive notes tonight.
Love it.
I said for a playoff week with none of our teams involved.
Yeah.
I knew we'd have to cover like the shenanigans at Mulligan's. We'd have to talk about the epic collapses of the Eagles and the Cowboys, and it worked out just fine. So we came in about it at what we have been for the last several episodes. So we are the Three Angry Giant fans. Follow us at @angry_3 on Twitter. Send in questions. We appreciate all the support you guys have given us, and we'll be back next week. We'll talk about the next round of the playoffs. I guess it's the semifinals at this point.
Yeah.
Hopefully better games. I will say this. I mean, if Super WildCard Weekend continues along this path of being Super Blowout Weekend, guys, I think the NFL is going to have to revisit it, but we'll see.
Their next move will be to add another team.
Right.
No buys.
Take away the bye for the one seed. Just have one play 8. Exactly.
Yeah.
That there's going to be an MLK Day game. That this 4:30 game of the Bills moved to Monday. Yes. They were like, we've got something here.
How about
that? Did really well.
You're right.
Yep.
You're right.
So, yep.
Mm-hmm. So we will see everyone next week. Thanks, everyone.